Hey guys, welcome back. Joe here again from ScaleFreak.com, coming to bring you bag 3 of the series of putting together the Sakura D4 rear-wheel drive drift kit. I'm doing a video for each bag, so there's a whole series of it so you can see just how easy it is to build this kit. But don't take my word for it. Stay tuned to the video. See for yourself. Back for this video, we're going into bag number 3. For this one again, tools, your 1.5, your 2 mil. Bring along your 2.5 if you've got one. Scissors, sharp hobby knife. Loctite, remember Loctite. Always have Loctite handy. For this one here, we're going through the covers for the front and rear bulkhead, as well as the shock towers, and of course we are finishing off the drive gear system because we're kind of missing something on the top of this. So we're going to finish that as well. Again, it's nice to have the magnetic parts tray and pit mat hanging around to make sure I don't lose any of my screws. There we go, put them all in there. And of course we got a bunch of plastic pieces, so be careful with the knife as you're trimming them all up. And that top plate that I've talked a lot about in the past couple of videos to help avoid the tweak, we talk about that step on this video as well. So first thing is first, we're gonna finish off the top of this. So set aside the parts that you are not gonna be using at this exact step. We're gonna go with these 3. And of course we do need to get a hold of our little countersunk screws. They should be 4. 1, 2, 3, and come on, number 4. There we go, so 4 of those bad boys right there. And of course we've got a little spacer that we're gonna need. And there should be in here somewhere a small drive pin. There it is. Bang. So what we're gonna do here, this is actually a really neat idea as to how well this kind of goes together. First, go through your parts, try to find that last bearing. That little boy is gonna go in here, slide in the shaft, and that is now going to give you all of that stiffness and structure that you're looking for on the top of that belt. So now it's strong, now it's exactly where it's supposed to be. Ta-da! Now the next thing you're going to do is line this bad boy up so you can see exactly where the hole on the top of that top shaft is, because now that's where that pin's gonna go through. But first we do have a small spacer or a small shim that has to go on there. It's gotta take up that space. So bang, now that bearing's in place where it's supposed to be. And then we're throwing on what is the back of the spur gear. Line it up well because this is where that drive pin goes. So I'm just going to turn it to myself so I can see it. Line it up. Also, you don't want to install it when it's straight up and down, because if you do that, it will just fall through. So 1 second here. And ta-da! I got it through, almost all the way through. There we go, all the way through. So bang, that's on there like that. Now that's gonna hold that in so nothing's gonna fall out. And of course we're gonna throw on what is our spur gear. So that goes on there like that. And we are going to grab the end cap. So there's actually a cap to the end of this. Now when you put this on, there are a ton of different screws on the top of here. You are going to, 1 second here, line it up with the screw holes. Put that bad boy cap on the top of there. And then you're going to put in the countersunk screws. Now, you are screwing into metal. That back piece that we put the pin through is metal. Grab your 2 mil, put a little Loctite on the end of those guys there. This is, again, another part that's going to vibrate like crazy. Tilt it back up on its side, because as you noticed, as soon as I put this down, that little cap fell off. Realign the holes and get your first screw in there. Now, this is another one of those parts that I just snug it a little tiny bit, and I'll go back and tighten them all down, but I want to make sure that I tighten them down evenly. Again, just like I was doing before with the actual, building the drive gear itself, you want to make sure that everything is tightened down with the same force, so it's not oblong, and all of a sudden it's going to cause your gear to be all goofy. So 4 screws go in here. I like this system, the way that it's designed, because if you ever had to change that spur gear, it's 4 screws and the spur gear comes off the side. There's not an excessive amount of, I was almost going to say construction, but an excessive amount of surgery to get back into there and change that spur gear. I've had some short course trucks and some kits in the past where you really have to go through and get in there with a scalpel and some forceps in order to get stuff back out. So we just evenly crank them down. It is into metal on the back side, so if you crank this thing down tight enough, you will squish the snot out of this plastic. So it just has to be hand snug evenly through the 4 of them. Remember, you put Loctite on this, so it's going to, within the 24 hours, lock it down so it stays there. Now you'll see here, everything turns freely. If I grab this and spin it, everything is nice and even. Do the best you can. And you'll notice here I don't really have any waving in the gear, so I'm really happy with that. I'm happy with that, how it went on there. That is how that top gear is finished. Now in a future bag, we'll throw on the ends and throw on the axles and stuff like that and toss the motor in. But that's, again, that part of the system is done. But now we have to worry about getting the tops of these things. Because really, I mean, at this point, this whole unit could actually fall out if I wasn't careful with it. Now, we're gonna do the rear first, because again, the rear and the front are very similar. And I don't really need to talk about them both, I guess. But let me see here, just grab the correct parts. For the rear, you're gonna grab the parts that have a hole for one of these guys here. So you'll see the differences are one will have a spot for 2, one will have a spot for 1. One also says 10 degrees on the side. The one that says 10 degrees is for the front. The one that says nothing is for the rear. Trim up the extra little bit of plastic here. Get it as cleaned up as best as you can. Now again, this is another area where you want to have the Loctite, because these guys are back in play again. These are what hold these, there we go, hold these, well, the shock towers actually go into this, but it's what holds them apart. So set that aside, set these guys up. You're gonna grab your 2mm again, put a little Loctite on the end of the screw, and it's going in here. 1, crank it down, ta-da! And then of course that one, you do the second one. Now, a bit of a suggestion, don't crank down the second one, just put it on, because I wait until I still want it to be able to go like this a little bit, until I've got it mounted to the top, and then I crank it down, because if they're off a little bit, it'll be really, really weird. So you want it to make sure that it sits completely flat. This second one here is to do the other one, which I don't need to do with you on camera, because it will be the exact same as this one here. Now there are a couple, where'd they go? There's that guy there, there's that guy there, and you're looking for these. Well, on the ring again. So this is like a ball stud that is going to go into this part. In the rear one, let me just make sure, there are 2 little tiny pink spacers in here. Those are going to go on the rear ones. There are no spacers for the front 4. There's actually 4 that go on the front. But for the 2 on the rear, make sure you nab those spacers. You've got to have that. It will change the geometry of your suspension if you do not get that thing on there. So just tighten that down, firm, snug. Again, you're screwing metal into plastic, so if you crank it too hard, you'll just strip it through. If you've built enough kits, you'll know exactly when enough is enough. If you've destroyed enough kits, then you'll definitely know when enough is enough. Or maybe you don't. So get that on there like that. So now we've got what eventually will be the top link for the rear wheels. Now, of course, for the rear, we are going to put on the shock tower. So make sure you get the right one, right? Because the front and the rear are different. The front is a little skinnier one. The rear is absolutely humongous. Now, of course, you're going to make sure there are countersunk screws on the back of this. You see how they're there? That points to the back. So there's that, and this is going to fit on the back of that, because your countersunk screws, let me see, 1, 2, 3, and 4 are going to hold that to the back of that unit. So let's get that in there. This again is where you're going to start to get structure off of this piece. So after you get these sunk down, you can start to actually screw down that top part that I was talking about, because this shock tower is not plastic, so it's very strong, and it's going to give you the structure you need to make sure that all 4 of those things are flat. So these ones here, again, you can tighten them down nice and snug. The neat thing about drift kits is, even though they do take the odd contact with each other, it's not as heavy contact as when you're doing on-road racing. At least it shouldn't be. Or if you're racing short course where you're ramping stuff like crazy. So you don't necessarily have to go through and just absolutely annihilate these things down to make sure that nothing backs off later. There will be some vibration, and I always recommend to go through and just snug some stuff down, but you don't necessarily have to crank these things beast mode. And then of course now, because I know that that thing is tough and stuck together, I will go through and tighten down the tops back into that there. So now we've got that set up so far for our rear. Now we are going to be putting the, the shocks into the top of this in the back. So what you're going to do is grab the screw. We got a 6 mil, there you are, little guy. There you are, little guy. 6 mil is going to go through the back of the tower. Now in the instructions, it actually shows you exactly which hole they recommend that it goes through. There are tons of adjustments. Like if you take a look at that, look at how many possible shock locations that you have. They tell you to put it through bottom hole 3 from the top. And of course, a little bit of Loctite helps on this. After I put the screw and I wipe it on there, put on what your shock is going to mount to. And if you still have your 2.5 handy, snug it down. You might want your 2 on the other side as well, because it will spin. Ta-da! So that's set up there. And repeat that a second time on the other side. Remember, same hole, otherwise you will just destroy your suspension if you've got it on the wrong sides. All of a sudden you'll wonder why your kit keeps spinning in circles. Well, I wonder why mine keeps going in circles, but that's just because I can't drift rear wheel drive yet. So again, 2 mil in the front, 2.5 mil in the back, and crank it down, there we go. So now we've got that set up as well. So awesome, that's how that goes. Now it's time to actually get this thing onto the kit itself, and it really just sets down like that. That's it. Like ta-da, bang. So what you're gonna use now, you've got a whole bunch of 6 mil button head screws. So 1, 2, 3, I need a 4th one. There we go, 4. That's what I need for that. And all I'm gonna do now is screw this down on top to make sure that this cap stays on. So 1, 2, and then 3, 4. Come on, how cool is that? So now, if my kit's upside down, my whole system's not going to fall out. I've got that whole gear set up on there. I've got the rear shock tower installed, and I also have all of the setup to put the front shock tower on. Now give me 1 second. There's no need for me to go through and repeat all those steps to do the front shock tower. It's the exact same steps that you just saw, only involving a couple extra screws. So give me 1 second. I'm just going to get the front one set up. I'll be right back. With the front and the rear shock towers and bulkhead tops installed, now it's time to throw in the top plate. So the top plate literally sits between here and here and holds the whole kind of top of the chassis together. Now, remember I talked before a little bit about the idea of tweak? Well, what can happen there is if your system is tweaked, when you go to install this guy here, just give me 1 second, I'll put this part in, and then I will put the second one in. If your chassis is tweaked at all, the other holes will be completely misaligned. So 1 second, crank it down, and bang. Not misaligned at all. So it actually fits exactly in there. If you tweak the chassis, it'll be over like this. Let's see if you can see it. Kind of is all the way over on the side. And then, but you want it to fit directly in. There's also, that comes with this, the tensioner for the front, for the front belt. But this is a rear wheel drive kit, so I'm not putting it in. I mean, it calls for it in the instructions, but honestly, It has absolutely no purpose in this kit right now. So I'm keeping that part out. I'm just going to finish off this top plate here, get that put there, and the final screw in here. And then this has been built correctly on the top and the bottom because, like I said, there is no tweak. Now, what you want to do, remember, as I mentioned before, I did not crank all these screws down. At this point, now that it's together, just go down, give each one a snug. Just make them all as tight as you want them to be now because the whole thing is put together and you have not twisted your chassis at all. So just go through on each screw, give them all a little bit of a snug to make sure that everything is locked into exactly what you desire. And that is how you will make sure that none of the screws are going to back off. You're not going to catch anything on the bottom, but you've also avoided your kit being all out of shape because one was tighter than another somewhere it was supposed to be. Because now everything on the top and the bottom has been tied in. The main structure of the chassis has been built. From here, we're just kind of filling it in. And 1 and 2. Done. So that is bag 3, all put together. Again, now we've got the tops, the shock towers, all the standoffs, everything like that is done right now. The whole drive system is complete. It only just needs a motor now, which I've got laying right here. But now again, the bottom, everything is screwed in. The top, everything is screwed in, and everything is in place. Woohoo! It's starting to look like a car. So guys, thank you very much for coming and checking out the video. Head over to RC Mart and check out this kit. This is the Sakura D4 rear-wheel drive kit. You can get an all-wheel drive too if you really wanted one. I wanted to try the rear-wheel drive just to see how it was going to go, and let me tell you, it goes well. This is absolutely amazing. But again, thank you very much for watching this video. Feel free to check out the whole series. I'm doing a video for each bag. And please remember to, down below, click on the comment, click on the like, click on subscribe, and share this throughout your community so that other people can see how easy this kit really is to build. So thank you guys. Thank you for checking it out, and have a great day.